Fellow Ugandans, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure now to address you today on the Uganda education sector preparedness and response to the coronavirus in our country. In January 2020, the World Health Organization declared the outbreak of the new coronavirus disease a public health emergency of international concern. The World Health Organization also indicated that it was spreading rapidly to other regions, countries, and territories. Now, its impact on the education. Following the outbreak, education systems globally have been significantly affected by the impact of this coronavirus. According to UNESCO, at least 165 countries have closed schools globally, and more than 516,000 million children and youth are affected. 17 other countries are implementing localized school closure. In Uganda, there are over 15 million learners enrolled in the education system. In addition to that, approximately 600,000 more children are attending schools in the refugee settlements in our country. Some of these settlements are located in high-risk towns bordering countries that have reported confirmed cases of COVID-19, increasing the risks for the entire school system in Uganda. The bulk of Ugandan students are enrolled in day schools, as you all know, while others are in boarding schools where many facilities are shared and learners are constantly in close contact with each other, their teachers, and other visitors on a regular basis, presenting a conducive environment for easy transmission of the COVID-19 virus. In response to the danger posed by the pandemic to Uganda learners, the President of the Republic of Uganda on Wednesday, 18th March 2020, announced the closure of all schools and educational institutions from the 20th March 2020 for a period of 30 days in a bid to avoid the possible rapid spread of new infections of COVID-19 if the schools had to remain open. This measure resulted in the closure of more than 73,000 schools and institutions, affecting more than 15 million learners and 548,000 teachers. Now, in recognition of the impact of this pandemic on the education system in Uganda, the Ministry of Education constituted a sector response task force to develop and coordinate the education sector preparedness and response measures to mitigate the impact of the outbreak of this COVID-19 on Uganda's education system. A response plan was subsequently developed to ensure a coordinated response by Ministry of Education and Sports, the district local governments and stakeholders to COVID-19 outbreak. This plan directly targets an estimated 15 million children and youth in primary and secondary schools, universities, and other tertiary institutions in Uganda. The teachers, the school administrators, the parents, and other stakeholders. Additionally, the plan addresses the education needs for the approximately 600,000 refugee learners in the 13 districts hosting refugees in the country. This plan guides the response actions of Ministry of Education and Sports, education development partners, district local governments, and the entire school system on the common response priorities. The sector response plan is also aligned to the Ministry of Health's National Plan for COVID-19 Preparedness and Response and directly contributes to two implementation pillars. To date, the government of Uganda, through the Ministry of Education and Sports, has undertaken a series of measures designed to provide the much-needed support to improve coordination among stakeholders, enhance communication, build capacities of government systems at national and subnational levels, as well as provide resources to ensure continuity of learning during the period of closure, which include the following. 1. Set up a sector coordination committee to coordinate efforts by education stakeholders to respond to the emerging needs of learners, teachers, education authorities, and the communities during and after COVID-19 outbreak. 2. Issued policy guidelines in a circular to all heads of schools on school closure operations. We have collected the contact details of all district education officers and head teachers for follow-up action in the local governments. 4. In a bid to ensure that the children are learning during this time of school closure, the Ministry, under the guidance of NCDC, is developing standardized self-study lesson packages in all the core subjects for primary and secondary education to be distributed to all learners, including special needs learners across the country, because as you remember, our education is for all. The Ministry has directed governing councils of universities and other tertiary institutions to ensure that measures are put in place to ensure continuity of remedial learning for all learners, including those without access to online education resources during the period of institutional closure. The Ministry has also directed all education institutions not to levy any extra fees in all education institutions following the resumption of education programs in the current school term or semester. The Ministry is also working with local governments through district inspectors of schools and DEOs and head teachers of primary and secondary schools to identify model teachers to prepare remedial learning to be delivered on radio and television stations across the country. Now, as you may be aware, the 30 days will end on the 20th of April 2020. At the right time, the government of Uganda will inform you of the date for reopening. Our planning is that if everything goes according to plan, God willing, pre-primary, primary, secondary schools and primary teachers' colleges will open for continuation of Term 1 on the 27th of April 2020 up to 12th of June 2020. Term 2 will start on the 22nd of June to 4th September, and Term 3 will start on the 21st of September to 19th December 2020. Universities and other tertiary institutions, including BITVET institutions, will open continuation of the current semester on the 2nd of May 2020. However, I'd like you to note the following. 1. The ministry will still operate 3 school terms and 2 semesters respectively. When schools reopen, it will be a continuation of term 1. Therefore, no extra fees should be charged. And 2, to recover the lost days, the first and second term holidays will be shorter. And 3, there shall be no formal test or exams at the end of term 1. All the time should be used for teaching and learning. Cumulative end of topic class-based results should be used on the end of term reports. 4, candidates shall do only 1 school-generated mock examinations at the end of term 2. Therefore, all schools are herewith banned from engaging students in any externally set mock examinations this year to ensure syllabus recovery time is not wasted. We have received several complaints and concerns that some universities are forcing students to pay for and do online examinations during this period. Yet, quite a number of our students do not have the required facilities and the money to do this. We have therefore decided that all these examinations be suspended until we are out of this crisis. In the event that school closure continues, the ministry recognizes that the possible spread of virus in many parts of the country may result into prolonged school closure with a further reduction and loss of instruction time. Low coverage of syllabus will significantly impact on learning outcomes. However, the Ministry of Education is committed to its vision of quality education and sports for all. Quality education is achieved when learners are developed holistically in the minds or heads or hearts and hands. This is achieved beyond the 4 walls of a classroom, but reinforced by effective implementation of the whole curriculum. It involves a number of stakeholders in and out of school, including the learners, teachers, school leadership and governance, parents, local government, political and civil leaders, religious and cultural leaders, and key central government ministries and members of parliament. I recognize and appreciate the efforts of some of the universities, schools, and other citizens, including the Uganda Kingdom, to keep learners engaged through e-learning systems, televisions, and radios. I, however, note that it is benefiting a small percentage of our learners and is not effectively coordinated. We will send out a harmonized continuous learning program for all primary and secondary school learners to all local governments and Association of Secondary School Head Teachers of Uganda, where selected teachers will use local radios which can be accessed by most learners and TVs where possible. The teaching will be focusing on core basic concepts in what learners have already covered. This will be supplemented with printed material wherever possible. The continuation of the systematic curriculum coverage will take place at school after reopening of schools. I appeal to all the stakeholders who will be involved according to the plan to ensure that every learner listens and learns at home during the designated time. Head teachers and teachers should listen to the lessons and eventually mark and give remedial lessons to the learners when schools do open. Teachers are requested to use the recess to prepare all the lessons for the remaining part of term 1 that will start when it starts, God willing. All learners at all levels should continue to read, to study, and revise the work of the previous years, since our curriculum is spiral and the concepts of one level are useful in the next level. Read novels, read newspapers, and any other material you access to widen your knowledge base. This is very applicable to university and tertiary institution students, since you already have course outlines and can get a lot of information on internet. I further wish to request the parents now to involve the learners in their home activities, to give them skills for life, such as cooking, cleaning, gardening, looking after animals, business, art, music, physical play and sports, and many others. Because you remember, we always say that education is a shared responsibility for us all. And this is a time when all of us have to participate to ensure that the children are not left alone to do nothing. Spend time with them to develop their values and positive attitudes. Tell them stories, riddles, and other life lessons, and support their learning. Help your learners make a craft or develop an innovation which will be required at school when the schools reopen. Counsel, guide, and encourage your children to wait for the reopening of schools with enthusiasm and zeal. I appeal to all of us to work together to ensure that no child is left out. All our learners are valuable and should benefit from the efforts on continuation of learning amidst this COVID-19 crisis. The Ministry of Education will continue to engage further with stakeholders in the event that the mandatory closure of schools persists beyond the 30 days. It is important to realize that in this very difficult time, what must be the most important concern for all of us is the safety of our students and staff in the education sector. And we are committed to undertake our responsibility to take every precautionary and preventive measure to ensure that that happens. We will continue to actively monitor the situation and make further recommendations as guided by the Ministry of Health, including the decision as to whether students will return to school after the pronounced 30-day closure or continue their education at home. Ministry of Health has continued to advise that the best way to contain this virus is by limiting opportunities for human contact and good hygiene and social distancing. And I'm happy to note that a number of Ugandans are embracing the values of good hygiene, and I pray that this continues. I am deeply conscious of the impact that the school closures have on students, on families, and on the wider community, and I pray that together we contain the spread and return to normal. In the meantime, I encourage our parents and guardians to work together in the best interest of our children during this time when they are at home. With a spirit of togetherness, let us help each other as much as possible as a community by sharing child care responsibilities with family members and other trusted individuals. This is a tough time for everyone, but together, let us look after our children. I encourage children and young people to keep up with their schoolwork and to help their parents around the home I urge you to remain engaged in physical play and sports while at home and in order to keep healthy and safe. Finally, I'd like to express my appreciation to all the government agencies, individuals, organizations, and education partners for the support they continue to accord the ministry during this difficult time. And in particular, I applaud all the health workers who are putting up a spirited fight for the recovery of the confirmed cases and prevention of further infection. To all our head teachers and lecturers, we are so grateful for all you do, particularly the effort that has gone into contingency planning for our learners. This disaster will certainly test us as a people, but it may also teach us things we may live to remember and even appreciate. And in any case, with God in the center, no obstacle is too big to be removed. As we continue in this period of uncertainty, trust the Lord and remain calm. For all of us, for everybody concerned, I ask that we all adhere to the ongoing guidelines from government, stay safe and pray for God's mercy in the midst of this pandemic. And remember that we really have a lot to thank God for, because we have seen how many countries have been very, very badly affected. And Uganda has been affected. But we can see that our numbers are still low, and we have not lost any one person to COVID-19 since the beginning of this crisis. So we have a lot to thank God for. I will continue to update you on what is happening in the education sector as we receive new advice from the Ministry of Health, but please keep safe and ensure the safety of our young people. And I thank you. I thank all the Ugandans who are now taking care of our learners. I thank the teachers. I thank all our stakeholders. And I thank you all. And God bless you. Thank you for listening to me.